Hello there. It's another week and you're welcome to this week's installment of the only program on television that brings you all you need to know about the happenings within Ghana's legislative arm of government. This is The Chamber and my name is Mensah Opoku. This week we'll tell you all you need to know about the major reason for this meeting. That's the budget. We'll be back after the break. So this week has largely been about the presentation of budget statement and the economic policy of government. But there have been other issues that have come up as well. For more on that, join me on this journey as we go for the recap of the major stories from Parliament. The 2020 Budget and Financial Policy Statement of Government, which is anchored on consolidating the gains for growth, jobs and security, projects overall economic growth at 6.8%. A fiscal deficit of 4.6% is anticipated in an election year with a firm promise not to overspend. Government expects to raise 67.1 billion Ghana cedis by way of revenue with a total expenditure of 85.9 billion cedis. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta touched on the banking sector cleanup and outlined new measures for the banks under the Ghana Amalgamated Trust portfolio.
NIB under the GATT initiative has also developed a new strategy that will transform it into a specialized bank. Going forward, NIB shall focus on promoting industrialization by deploying the right products and services to finance industry across the country and in line with national development priorities. In this regard, Parliament is requested to approve a 2.2 billion put-call option from government to GATT to enable it to raise the required funding for NIB via preference shares. This will replace the government guarantee to GATT that was previously approved.
Despite the cancellation of the PDS deal, Ken Ofori-Atta indicated government's firm resolve to follow through with the private sector participation in the management of ECG.
Mr. Speaker, as we all know, on July 30th, 2019, government suspended the Power Distribution Service, PDS concession, following government's detection of fundamental and material breaches of PDS's obligation in the provision of payment securities for the transaction and related matters. After further investigation and extensive consultation with relevant stakeholders, Government on October 19, 2019, announced its decision to terminate the PDS concession. Regardless, Ghana is fully committed to private sector participation in ECG and is focused on moving forward with urgency to find a suitable replacement for the PDS arrangements. Moreover, we are prepared to review the transaction structure and indeed recognize the need to improve significantly the management of ECG by bringing in world-class private sector expertise and attracting adequate private capital.
In response to concerns from many Ghanaians on the poor nature of roads, the Finance Minister announced that the sector will be given the needed attention.
To get the road sector moving and contractors back to work, government will pay 80% of all contractors. Mr. Speaker, we have identified critical roads across each of the 60 regions and construction will begin on all these critical roads. Cocoa Board has also secured funds to continue ongoing and new cocoa roads. Work on these roads will also commence soon. As part of our new initiative to complement the traditional execution of road projects, we have launched, Mr. Speaker, the Accelerated Community Road Improvement Initiative. Just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the 48th Engineers Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces has started work in Sowutuom and were able, Mr. Speaker, within a day to do over 4 kilometers of road. Mr. Speaker, the first phase of the Sino-Hydro arrangement is finally taking off. We have also been able to mobilize financing for over 150 other roads nationwide.
Headquarters, also known as KIA, received some good news from the budget.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that preparations are now complete and the construction of the 600-bed Kayaye hostel will commence in Aboboloshi next month to provide accommodation and skill training to these vulnerable young women.
2020 is an election year. Government says the Electoral Commission will be given the resources necessary for the conduct of credible elections. The 2020 budget statement was presented by the Minister of Finance on Wednesday, but he was in the House yet again to amend the statement because the Volta region was omitted from the list of critical roads to be paved in 2020.
My checks confirm, Mr. Speaker, the inadvertent omission of Volta region. All the regional ministers, Mr. Speaker, were requested to submit a list of critical roads which required immediate attention. At the instance of the Volta regional minister, 3 road projects in the Volta region were prioritized in the list of critical road projects for 2020. As it turned out on page 160 of the budget document, the Volta region was inadvertently left out. In the event, I'm here to amend Table 21, Mr. Speaker, to include the critical roads in the Volta region as originally agreed on. For the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, the critical roads for Volta region are as follows. Asikuma have 45 kilometers, have Hohoi Jasikan 83 kilometers, and Ho George Denu 99 kilometers.
The statement to amend the budget generated some debate in the chamber.
I think what really matters is that he's told us. He has told us that his attention was drawn to it by the regional minister who was tasked to submit the critical roads. And indeed, the original version of it, the Speaker, if somebody is asking me where's the evidence, so if a minister submits a report to the substantive minister, you want to be privy to that.
And where there is no need, there is no need. This is additional because those regions have been adequately catered for and assured. So your attempt to play mischief with central and northern region won't wash. This is a second budget statement. It is inappropriate. You are asking us for standing order. Read order 79. Notice, if you want to amend a motion, you must come by notice.
The Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Amor Motley, was in Parliament as part of her official visit to the country. She addressed the House, touching on the historical bond that exists between the two countries.
While history, colonizers, and the ocean have separated us for so long and have made standards and rules that would cause us to reject all that we are, reject all that we look like, and reject all that we would achieve, it is up to us to change that and to make for our children a new reality.
The Youth and Sports Minister, Isaac Isiama, was in Parliament to answer questions on the Australian visa racketeering scandal.
On the 6th of April 2018, this matter was referred to the Ministry of National Security for investigations. So, Speaker, I will therefore not be in a position to speak further on it. The matter is not before a court. The Ministry of National Security is like any other ministry. It's not before a court. So I want the Speaker to give guidance on that matter so that I can proceed.
Honorable, it's a very sensitive matter, and it is for national security. And the minister is telling you, I'm not seized with a report yet from national security. How can he comment? So please, address any queries you may have to the relevant minister responsible.
The provision of an ambulance for each constituency is under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program, IPEP, of government, supervised by the Ministry of Special Development Initiatives. About 96 ambulances procured under the initiative are currently parked in Parliament. The minority members on the Health Committee believe these ambulances can be put to better use. Kwabna Minta Akando is the ranking member on the Health Committee.
As you can all see behind us, we have seen ambulances parked here for months. And you know the purpose for ambulance. The purposes are for emergency purposes. So if you buy ambulance and you pack the ambulances without serving its purpose, how will the country benefit from the ambulances? And therefore, I think that we are even being charitable. We are giving the president, because the bus will always stop at the president, maximum 3 days to distribute the ambulances.
But MP for Adentan and Director of Communications for the MPP, Yabu Abia Samoa, believes the minorities' concerns are misplaced.
The most critical thing is that certain features, particularly trackers, must be put on them before they are released. And the government is on the ball and working towards that. This has been said ad infinitum, and I am surprised that the minority chooses to come out with these theatrics. The object of the minority ought not to be to create situations that don't exist. I think in the partnership in governance depends on us achieving real substance for the people we represent.
So there you have it, the major stories in Parliament this week. And still packed behind me are the contentious ambulances that have been the major subject of heated deliberations between the minority and the majority. Still packed there. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back from the break. So we have a new budget presented to us by the Finance Minister for Government for the 2020 financial year. 6.8%. That's the GDP growth target government is giving for itself for the 2020 year. It's expecting to raise some 65.9 billion Ghana cedis in terms of revenue and to expend a little over 87 billion Ghana cedis by way of its expenditure budget for this year. I caught up with some members of parliament to really dissect the budget which was presented as to whether it is an Inkoso and Inkabom budget, per what the majority is saying, or it is a bye-bye budget, as the minority is saying. There is more from the floor. Honorable Ama Kofibwa, you're welcome, sir.
It's good to be here, Citi TV, right?
Yes.
Our friends don't disappoint. Something very important I picked in the budget. With all the talk about we are going to really invest in infrastructure, we will address road. What I saw was that 246 billion is what is committed to infrastructure. And you know what? Almost a billion, 968 or so, is what is committed to social intervention. The same consumption mentality. And so they have not changed. I thought in this budget, the Minister of Finance will finally I understand that the pattern of expenditure, which has been so consumption focused, is what has brought us here.
But the government has said over the period that its focus is on human development projects. It's mentioned programs, it's mentioned free SHS, it's mentioned NAPCO, it's mentioned a whole lot of other things. So of course, this is the government's priority, and so they would push money there. Yes.
Let's talk about free SHS. When the government is spending more than 90% of that money going to education, not on physical infrastructure, not on the furniture that is needed, not on the things that the school actually needs to succeed, but on consumption items that we can't quantify. That is not helping our long-term goals. That's problematic. I'm saying don't take my word for it. We need to now probe into how can a government say that they are going to focus on infrastructure and spend $246 million on infrastructure and almost $1 billion on social interventions. What is interesting, in the last budget, this minister, again, when he went to the energy sector, talked about the fact that they were going to sit down with the companies to basically deal with and negotiate and get us out of the so-called take or pay.
He mentioned that again today.
He brought it today.
He mentioned
what
again
has happened
today.
in the last year? Is this just a talk? What has happened in the last year?
You know the sector. You know how sometimes it's difficult to come up with some of these agreements, meetings upon meetings and restructuring and the rest. Especially even if you look at the trajectory of America and how difficult it was for us to do that deal, you would know that this sector is not one that one easily goes through with these agreements.
We've said is what has come to pass. what was in this budget for so many, the millions of Ghanaians who have lost their job in the banking sector? What is in the budget for them? What is in this budget for ordinary depositors who are dying to see how they were going to be paid? What was the intervention by government? I didn't see it.
The budget mentioned that Consolidated Bank, for instance, has been able to rehire some of the staff of these banks that they've been able to bring together. I mentioned the fact that depositors are being paid back their monies because Consolidated Fund is doing that. It also mentioned the fact that the total strength of the financial sector or the banking sector has moved from 89 billion to some 115 billion because of the work that has been done with the cleanup. That's in the budget. It's a house of records.
What did you see in growth? The minister still talked about 8.7 growth. And then when you looked at it, in the construction sector, 8.5% negative growth. In the fishing sector, 6% negative growth. In the manufacturing sector, negative growth. The only thing we see in growth is the oil and gas sector. The reality is that this government has not brought anything, any relief to the taxi driver that is hoping to see some relief, to the market woman, to the fishermen. This is an empty budget. I'm very surprised. So in the last year budget, where people of Ghana are looking for hope, I think we left hopeless.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. That's the Honorable Member of Parliament for the Elembele constituency. He is also a former Minister of Energy and Petroleum in this country. Well, I've been joined by two members of Parliament. I would begin with the member of the Finance Committee, Member of Parliament for the Okankwe North constituency. Your Honorable Issa Hussein, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me also.
The criticism is that still we're going to spend a little over 9 billion on capital expenditure, capex. Yet this government is mentioning that in the budget that is going to this year, for instance, is going to be a year of roads. Your constituency is notorious for having some of the most deplorable roads. First of all, let's begin with your opening thoughts on this budget, which government has tagged as Nkosuo and Nkabom budget.
I think that the Nkosuo budget is actually address the bread and butter issues, especially on government flagship programs. The government has been able to come to tell us what it's been able to do within the last 3 years. And I think that it's a good reflection. And like we say, one good term deserves another term. This is a budget that is going to propel us into the next elections. And it's very obvious that Ghanaians are going to buy into this budget, and it's going to get us another term.
All right, let me speak to the Honorable Member of Parliament for the Wa Central constituency, Dr. Rashid Pelpo. This is a budget government is saying, touting its achievement all through, and is saying it's putting a lot of money into people's pockets by the various social interventions. Of course, that runs amok with the money that's been put into the capital expenditure side. What will be your basic, your general comments about the budget, preliminary thoughts about the budget that's been read today?
Well, it's a very terribly embarrassing budget we have.
Really?
Yes, very, very terribly embarrassing. A budget for the first time being read on the floor of Parliament with the diplomatic community boycotting it is serious. It's something that we should begin.
Is this for a fact, or this is something that you are just mentioning?
You find that they are not there to watch, to witness what is happening. A budget which was read with senior members of government sleeping. You know that there's boredom in it, there's lackluster performance, and there's general discouragement. And this is also a budget that is not telling the truth about what is happening in our country, our economy. You know, for all the 3 years, things have gone so terribly bad. Roads have deteriorated. The yearly maintenance of road is out of the agenda. They are blaming it on the previous government, which tells about their failure and failure to take responsibility.
Yes, still under this government, there's been rebounding of growth from the 3.6% economic growth that they took this economy from up to 7.6 this year, and next year this budget is projecting some 6.8%. Is it indeed all gloom and doom under this government per this budget that has been read by the finance minister today?
I'm sure if Ghanaians hear this, they will be very, very angry with you. When we talk about road deterioration, then you talk about the fact that you have even done better, and the fact that the real economy is realistic in the pockets of people, in the livelihood of people, in the way people live. People are suffering. The challenge is there. You see it every day. The roads are bad. Businesses are collapsing. And the worst thing that I heard from him, from the minister, was when he praised the government of the Bank of Ghana for a good job done, a smooth transition they made about the banks that are collapsed.
That's to take a leaf from the book of the IMF. They said the same thing.
And it's called smooth. When banks are collapsed, people are out of jobs. Businesses are collapsed. You call it smooth. Responding to IMF, what IMF thinks about us, what we think about ourselves. This is an insult, to say the least.
Okay.
And I think that Ghanaians should rise and tell the truth about what they are seeing.
He believes it's a terrible budget. Nothing good has come out of it. People have lost jobs. Nothing has been done to address the challenges in the sector. This may be true, a true reflection of that, since the measures even to be put in place to say provide alternative source of livelihood to those who have lost their lives, livelihood in the banking sector crisis, very little was mentioned in this budget. Wouldn't you agree?
You see, they can decide to narrow down on the doom and gloom bit. But that's a budget that highlights and that tells us, and that is realistic, that today we have over 1.2 million students in senior high school. This is a budget that is telling us that the weak financial banking system that they left behind, we have smoothly rectified the weakness in the system, and the system is started already borrowing. The system is already lending to businesses, and we are seeing the real sector of the economy back to growth trajectory. We are seeing agri grow by 5.6%, and this is what Ghanaians want to see. We are seeing the benefits that everyday man on the street is seeing from the good management of the economy by this government. We are seeing the employment that we have created. We have seen NAPCO. We have seen the employment of nurses. We have seen the recruitment of teachers. We have seen the allowances working. We have seen IPEP doing. We have seen One Village, One Dam. We have seen the benefits of 181 companies benefiting from 1D, 1F. And this is what is going to push the real sector of the economy growing. What else do they want to see? We have taken an economy that was not growing, the economy that was expanding at 3.4% to growth trajectory, and that is what Ghanaians want to see. When the economy expands, that is where job opportunities are created, and that's how we can.
So for you, indeed, this is an Nkosua budget.
I think that it's an Nkosua budget, and it's a budget that is propelling us into the next term. And like we said, one good term deserves another good term.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Okaikwe North constituency. Now, I'll wrap up with you, the Honourable Dr. Rashid Pelpu. What will be your final comment? He believes this is an Nkosua budget, a budget that is propelling this government into another term, a budget that has actually been put in place to ensure that Ghanaians enjoy the very best of next year.
I think this budget is full of new promises that are yet to be made, that are yet to be carried out. And since the beginning of the time they are in office, either as campaigning to take power as opposition or in government, it has been promises and promises. They are promising to do so many things. 96 billion Ghana cedis borrowed from various sources, bilateral, multilateral, and nothing to show for it. The last $500 million borrowed is now what they are using to say, we will do this road, we will do this, that, we will do this, that. I don't believe in what they are doing, and I don't think any Ghanaian believes in them. This is a budget that is taking us nowhere. It is a bye-bye budget. They are just saying bye-bye to Ghanaians because they are leaving. And I think that Ghanaians should keep it in mind that they should punish governments who come and make promises and fail to fulfill those promises. It's a social contract. They have talked about so many things, one village, one down, one this, one that, one this, one that, and they have failed all of them. And I think that this single budget, which has made various other promises, should not be the reason they should vote for them. And I think we should just say bye-bye to them because JM is coming, NDC is coming back, we are coming to our winning ways, and definitely Ghana is going to change and change for the better from 2020-21 onwards.
Thank you very much. That's the Honourable Abdul Rashid Pelpu, Member of Parliament for West Central. I've been joined by the Honourable Member of Parliament for the La Dadeko-Topon, yes, Dadeko-Topon constituency here in the Greater Accra Region, Deputy Minister for Communications. The budget seems to have been quite silent on your sector. Does that make you disappointed?
Not at all, not at all. Let me thank you for giving the opportunity. If you listen to it, the Honourable Finance Minister, once again very excellent in his delivery, spoke about digitization. So digitization is about communication. We are going to accelerate the digitization of the economy, expand access, We are going to ensure that we strengthen cyber security. We're going to ensure that we continue with the digital literacy programs and also to ensure that we continue with the schools program, building more computer labs, making sure that people are digitally literate, building more CICs, community information centers. And so that's why digitalization. It spoke about issues about e-ID, the digital property addressing system, the e-parliament. Very soon parliament is going to be fully automated, e-immigration, e-procurement, and the numerous digitalization that this government has introduced, of course, the paperless clearing system. So I'm very excited about this budget. Well, it spoke about consolidation of the gains made to make sure there's more jobs and creates more prosperity. So you know about the 16 flagship projects of this government. I heard my colleague speaking about Ghanaians. No one will vote for John Mahama. He's proven he was vice president, he became part president, he had his own forte. We know his record, we know his track record. Even when he was in power, he couldn't do what he's supposed to do. So no one will go for John Mahama.
The accusation is that this budget is focusing much more on consumption spending on consumption, free SHS, NAPCO. Even now, there's a program that is going to allow market women to be able to lend money through the use of mobile money. So many other projects that is focused on consumption rather than that. What will be your rebuttal to this, or what do you have to say to those who are saying that you are focusing on consumption instead of expenditure?
The basic economic principle is to create effective demand. So consumption creates demand. We used the past 30 years to consolidate, build the fundamentals of the economy, and now we are taking a step to ensure that once we consume, it creates demand, it expands the economy, and you have money in your pocket. What's wrong with it?
But that would be driven by capital expenditure.
What do you mean by capital expenditure?
Infrastructure, roads, and all of that. It looks like the amount of money going to human development programs compared to that going to infrastructure is uncomparable. The gap is huge. Does that mean that
that's not true?
Infrastructure is not a priority for this government?
That's not correct. What do you mean by infrastructure? The finance minister said, with no new taxes, we are going to build more roads. There's no new taxes, we are going to build more schools. There's no new taxes, interest rates is going to come down.
How are you going to finance that?
Sorry?
How are you going to finance that without the requisite taxation?
How are we going to finance that? Because we are going to manage it prudently. Because, you see, we are not going to borrow. The IMF is gone. We're not taking money from the IMF. We are going to generate more internal revenue to finance what we are trying to do. My friend, you should be very excited that you have a government who is going to tell you it's not going to borrow. But he is confident that the expenditure will be financed by internally generated funds from the country. You should be excited about that. We are not going to go on a borrowing spree like my colleagues who are dreaming of coming back to government. It's just a dream. We are not going to do that.
Close to 15% gap in terms of your revenue and your expenditure. How exactly are you going to finance that? Because you're looking at some revenues of some 65 billion. Meanwhile, you're going to spend some 87 billion. There's a gap over 15 billion. How are you going to finance that?
You cut your coat according to your cloth. That's a basic financial management principle. And that is what got us where we are now. We are going to be the fastest growing economy. Where the IMF, that the NDC ran to come and build them out, are telling them that this economy is one of the best in the world. The IMF that they ran to is the same IMF that said we are going to be the fastest growing economy. You see, it's important you in the media understand what we've been able to achieve in 30 months. The foundations that we have built. And it's that foundation that's given the confidence that we'll be able to generate the revenue internally to finance.
How does that translate into the lives of the ordinary man? The woman that sells kenke in Teshio and Ungwa or somewhere in Labadi, your constituency. How are these figures on paper? The economy may look good on paper. We're going at 7.6%, inflation and all of that. How is that translating into the life of the kenke seller in Labadi?
My good friend, I knew Citi FM when we were just a small radio station. But due to prudent management, you've been able now to expand to TV. That's the path we are taking. So translation of macroeconomic into the pocket doesn't just happen. It takes sustained economic management, like the way you have organically grown your Citi FM. This is what you have to tell the people. It doesn't just come and go. But in any case, the social interventions we've made,
A lot of things that we've made is we put money into people's pocket. But we need to understand that to be able to translate from macroeconomic stability to micro, where you're going to, it takes time. That is why this budget is not introducing new things. We are consolidating the gains so I'll be able to translate, as you rightly said, to spend more on consumption so people can grow. This is the best government we have in our history. And people should really, really applaud what he says the NADO has done and what the finance minister has done. We are confident that next year by this time, you see a different Ghana where people will realize that they have an impact, because now the private sector is benefiting from more credit from the banks. Interest rates are going to come down. It's going to translate to they're going to hire more people. This is the path to sustain economic transformation.
Okay, what will be your final words?
Well, bye-bye, that my colleagues were saying, is bye-bye again to JM. There is absolutely no way JM, what is he going to offer? When they say bye-bye, they must offer alternative. This is the best budget we've had. We're consolidating the gains, and trust me, Ghanaians, very soon you begin to feel the real impact. My colleagues for the real sector. What's the real sector? The real sector has a primary and secondary sector. Agric is growing, industry is growing, service is growing. Very, very soon, the real impact is beginning to filter through already. So tell my colleagues that they better go and come and offer alternatives. And just as for JM, I'm sure Ghanaians know who he is. He's incompetent. Right. He has nothing to offer. Okay. Even when he was in power, he couldn't deliver. What's when he's in opposition? Thank you very much.
That's the Honourable Member of Parliament for the La Dade Kotupon constituency, Vincent Odote. So I have been joined by the Honourable Member of Parliament for South Dai, the Honourable Roxanne Nelson Eche. Dabiamapo, you're welcome.
Thank you, my brother.
This is a budget which is projecting that growth, GDP growth is going to hit some 6.8%. Deficit is going to be cut down to some 4.8%. In an election year, that seems to be quite a Herculean task, but this government says it's not going to overspend it's overrun its budget. Clearly, this should be some sign of good tidings.
Not at all. You listen to a finance minister that has borrowed as much as 88 billion in 2.5 years. You listen to a finance minister that tells you that the quantum of money that he spends every year on interest payment alone is 21.3 billion. Now the question is, all the projects that they listed, for instance in the road sector, that they will undertake in 2019, they are unable to do so. And they have shifted the same number of roads onto the 2020 budget to implement. And yet the finance minister has stated clearly that the expenditure volumes that he indicated in 2019, that he's been able to expend the money.
This year we didn't hear repetition of roads like we would hear in the previous budget. We didn't hear Dodo Pepe, so we didn't hear so many other repetition of projects that would be in previous budgets.
Have you seen or read 2019 budget?
Yes.
You've seen the roads?
Yes.
And you are saying that the roads that the man has mentioned, indicated in the 2020 budget, are not the same?
We didn't see some of the roads that are in last year's budget.
No. Didn't you hear him mention the level of completion of some of them as 10%? A road project that is supposed to have been completed in 2019.
All right. Okay.
Now, hold on. Now, did you hear the man say, for instance, that manufacturing is growing? When you look at the figures,
yes, I'll come back to you. Let me engage the honourable. Let me engage the honourable Minister for Communications. This is a budget which was quite heavy on the digitization agenda, which is being driven by your ministry. How does this tie into government's general agenda for growth and going into next year?
You know, we keep hearing that we can use technology to leapfrog development. And I am glad that this government is prioritizing the digitalization of our economy. Because you can keep doing the same things and expect different results, but that is lunacy. And so we've changed the paradigm of the basis on which we are building this economy. We're focusing on technology. We're digitizing all sectors, putting in the foundational bits, making it easy for people to access credit using their mobile devices, securing that digital infrastructure, making it easy for government to collect its revenue without it seeping into people's pockets, by encouraging electronic payments across all sectors. And I'm excited that we're moving beyond Ghana alone to put in place a digital strategy that we can showcase to the rest of the continent that this is what Ghana is doing. It's working for us. Let the rest of them emulate it. Ghana has been elected champion for the ECOWAS region in cybersecurity. In digitalization, a lot of people are coming here to understudy the few initiatives that we put in place. The mobile payment systems architecture that we've put in place is revolutionary. It's the first in the world, which has ensured financial inclusion for everybody who has a mobile phone. And so these are all initiatives that we need to grow and encourage and showcase to the rest of the world. So I'm delighted that we are working on also rolling out the infrastructure which will enable all our population to be connected and to benefit from these digital initiatives while we secure that system and digitize even more sectors of our economy.
Unfortunately, the emphasis on the digital infrastructure seems not to have been translated into a real infrastructure on the ground in terms of roads, in terms of schools, in terms of hospital and others, such that if you look at the spending going to human development programs such as Free SHS, NAPCO and others, if you compare that to capital expenditure, roads and others, one dwarfs the other. Some say this is bad. You are not growing the economy as supposed to grow in terms of the infrastructure, which is really going to drive the change that many ask for.
All the indices show that our economy is on track. All the indices are in the right direction.
Someone will say it looks good on paper, not in reality on the ground. Yes, that's what the opposition says.
Well, but there's this saying that akokwa sachra kroma enya nefe. I mean, it will be difficult for them to admit that where they failed, we're succeeding. Okay. And so I'm not surprised that they would adopt that stance. But in every household, and I've said so before, no household in this country has remained untouched with the positive benefits of the visionary leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Okay. And it is only people who are willfully blind and ignorant who will say that nothing has happened. And that's why I said, it doesn't mean they're witches.
All right. Okay, so that's the Honorable Esla Owusu Akufo. That's a member of Parliament for Ablekuma West. I have with me here the Honorable Member of Parliament for Ejuma Kwenyan Isiam, Minority Spokesperson on Finance, the Honorable Keselato Forsen. This should be a budget that should inspire some hope, looking at the numbers that were thrown out there. Growth 6.8%. Deficit 4.6. That's what government is projecting. In an election year, they are promising not to overspend. Good news?
Hey brother, I'm disappointed and sad. Sad because of the direction that this country is going. Sad because of misalignment of our national resources.
How so?
You see, let me give you an example. In this budget statement, I was just opening, I've gone through the numbers very well. You see, we were told that they are going to the Eurobond market and they are going to raise an amount of 17.1 billion Ghana cedis, borrow debt. They are going to borrow 17.1 billion Ghana cedis.
There's a funding gap. How else are they supposed to fund it?
Let me tell you what they are.
As you did when you were in government.
So, what they are going to do is that they are going to spend only on investment under 1 billion Ghana cedis. The rest of the money, they are going to use it for consumption, what I normally call chop. So you go out there to borrow 17.1 billion Ghana cedis and use only 1 billion for consumption expenditure. This is not acceptable.
When you mention consumption, which areas are they going to? When you mention, yes.
For conferences, for travels, that's what they're going to use the money for. And it's here. I am not the one saying it.
17 billion.
17 billion. Ghana cedis, Eurobond, hard currency. You are going to run conferences and meetings and pay wages and salaries with it. Not acceptable. Let me tell you something. The ordinary Ghanaian on the street would have thought that our major concern is how our roads will be fixed. Isn't it? I'm sure you have a concern on
mention that 2019 will be a year of roads.
So it is not the case. You see, Ghana Road Fund, you and I, we are contributing to the road fund levy an amount of about 1.7 billion Ghana cedis. That money is supposed to go to the Ghana Road Fund Authority for the purposes of maintaining our roads and build our roads. You know how much they are going to give to Ghana Road Fund? Only about 1.1 billion. So about 600 million Ghana cedis of road fund money is also going to consumption. A tax you have paid, a tax I have paid, and we expect the ordinary Ghanaian to get the benefit of that tax for the purposes
For
of
some time now, the road fund has been going into, portions of it has been going into paying servicing some debts that were contracted under your administration. Is this not following in that vein?
In the last 4 years, this administration has taken road fund money that is in excess of what Sino Hydro is bringing. If Sino Hydro is supposed to bring $500 million, so far, and $500 million is about $2 billion. So far, they have taken road fund money about 2.3 billion Ghana cedis.
By way of capping or what?
By way of capping, taking road fund money. And I would have thought that money will be channeled into areas that will bring productivity.
But that's legal.
You see, what is legal? It's legal because, yes, they have said that is government direction. But you see, it's misalignment. It is not actually going to lead into areas that will bring growth. Not only that, look at the Ghana Education Trust Fund. You know, and I know, that today, our education sector is in crisis. In crisis because the ordinary school child, the SSS student, is now going on a double track. One go on a yellow or green or whatever they call it, double track. One go about 40 days, another go over 40 days. Obviously for a reason. And the reason is that we do not have enough infrastructure. So how do we build infrastructure? It is for a good reason that the NDC administration decided to introduce the Ghana Education Trust Fund for the purposes of building infrastructure. Let me tell you, Get Fund is supposed to get 2 billion Ghana cedis. You know how much they are giving? They are giving Get Fund only about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis.
Is this not because
million Ghana cedis?
Is this not because of the 1.5 billion loan that which Get Fund has been used as securitization for that?
In fact,
which is also to build infrastructure for this free SHS program and this double track system.
What you've just said makes the case even worse, because you see, Road Fund, when they Get Fund, when they came to Parliament, the Minister for Education, with a memo from Cabinet, has said, as a result of them going to take the loan, government has decided not to cap the Road Fund. So you've seen a government that comes out with a Cabinet directive saying that you are not going to cap it for the purposes of them getting enough money to be able to pay their debt. Today you are capping. As a result, they cannot pay that debt. And when it becomes a debt, a contingent liability that will crystallize, then government of Ghana has to pay. You see the worry that we have? And again, National Health Insurance Levy. You and I will contribute to National Health Insurance Levy. And apart from that, those of us that are SNIT workers will also contribute something to the National Health Insurance Levy. The VAT element is bringing in about 2 billion. National Health Insurance is also getting additional 573 million Ghana cedis from SNIT. The two put together, you are getting approximately 2.6 billion. They are giving them just about 2 billion Ghana cedis. What is this? What sort of octopus way of getting money from people like this? So you see, the core of the economy is being collapsed. That is my concern. The core of the economy is being collapsed. And that is why I consistently, and I've said, that you can see misalignment in the way the expenditure is being allocated. Capital expenditure for the entire year, the domestically financed capital expenditure, of which the contractor is going to benefit from, is about 3.3 billion.
Are we going to see
3 billion? It is only about 3 billion that is going to be, only about 1 billion that's going to be financed from tax revenue. The remaining 2.3 billion is coming from oil money, the annual budget funding amount. That is not fair.
Are we going to see some form of protest from the minority in terms of the approval of some of the estimates that will be coming onto the floor? Because after this, there will be appropriation.
You see, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We've just started discussing the budget. Let's see in the coming days. We are going to debate it and debate it pretty well. And what we can assure you is that you are going to see an excellent debate on this budget statement, because obviously this is an empty budget. It's a budget that does not bring hope to the ordinary Ghanaian. The ordinary Ghanaian today is worried. It's a budget full of propaganda. They've said so much that they do not mean it. Unfortunately, that is what it is.
So for you, clearly, this is not an Nkosua budget?
Oh, this is a budget that is going to rather distort the economy, the fundamentals of the economy, and take Ghana back to where we don't really want to go, unfortunately. Because you can see the misalignment in terms of what we used to do, misalignment in terms of where the revenue is supposed to go, and the money is now going into consumption. I do not think that is the way we build a country. Nobody builds a country like that.
Thank you very much. So that's the Honorable Kesel Atufosin. He is a member of Parliament for the Jumaku Enyan Esiam constituency. He is actually the minority spokesperson on finance and ranking member on the Committee on Finance. I have been speaking to him there. We're still taking some reactions from members of Parliament after the budget has been read. Actually, the last 3 to 4 hours has been spent right here in Parliament with the Finance Minister addressing various issues, speaking to government's planned programs and projects for the year 2020, which is an election year for that matter. Government has actually stated that this year is actually adding up no taxes. So this is a budget that is looking at no taxes. This is a budget that is actually, government has said, has nicknamed it the Nkosua and Nkabon budget. I have also with me here a member of Vice Chairman of the Health Committee. He also sits on the Finance Committee. He is Member of Parliament for Ifijasi Asokore in the Ashanti region. The Honorable Dr. Ayu Afriye, you're welcome to our coverage on Citi FM, Citi TV.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Thank you.
What will be your preliminary comments about the budget?
I think that it inures to the expectation of our manifesto, where we set an agenda to create equal opportunities for all after we've had growth. And the minister outlined what was growth, what we have done to stabilize the economy, and then what they are doing for the society. And even in the midst of not having much in terms of revenue, we have missed all the revenue targets. And in good economic practice, if you miss revenue, you increase taxes. But the minister assured us that this budget is not going to bring taxes, and he also don't regret reducing taxes on real estate, reducing taxes at the port, import duties slashed down. It has affected our revenue mobilization, but he doesn't regret it. If they are doing this in the interest of the Ghanaian, just to take away some heat in pricing and disposable income to be more in their hands, then he's okay with it. Yes, we have taken decisions to reduce taxes where it doesn't make sense, but we are comfortable with it, and we are thinking that it is going to be in the best interest of the people by a few things that we're going to do, expanding on the school feeding program, Metro Mass Transits that they're going to have to see more buses in there, and NAPCO enrollment is going to go up. There's going to be all these social changes that normally you would have to be economically strong before you can execute them. He said regardless of everything, they are going to do it. He says they are going to make sure that roads, if not for nothing, next year, everybody should have good flow of roads around your area you live in.
The criticism is that this budget focuses heavily on consumption, even to the point that a huge chunk of the Eurobond money that we are going to borrow would go into consumption. Is that the right way to grow an economy that's in dire need of infrastructure?
It's a chicken and egg situation. We came to meet an economy that was heated. Things were expensive. There was no money. Primary balance was negative. We are still struggling to get out of borrowing to consume. Even as he read the budget, he told you the primary balance was negative. That should say that we still borrow to consume. That also means that we are not in a position to generate a lot of revenue, that productivity in the system is low.
But we have voted into power to fix these issues, and 3.5 years after this, 30 months after this, we still cannot be complaining.
As an economic policy person, there is no one fixed answer to all this. The most important is are you going to put more taxes to be able to rake in more revenue and the citizens will complain, or you are going to hold on? Now we are anticipating that oil prices will surge in future. That will rake in more revenue. And then we also anticipate in 2021, there's going to be an increase in the production of oil because of the new oil fields, from 150,000 a barrel a day to about 400,000. And that will rake in the money that we need. So yes, it's a difficult decision that we are taking. Yes, you voted MPP and Nanado's government to fix the economy, but we think the people matter. When you are going to be so much tax driven, the people will be so fatigued and you will definitely break the system. So the decision he took was right. He says that he's going by the Keynesian thinking. The Keynesian thinking are that you, in the midst of difficulty in growing the economy, you are going to reduce taxes so that you are going to steer aggregate demand and people can be able to have some disposable income to afford. And that is what Nanado's government has done. In the midst because of the difficulty, no revenue, he says, I am not going to tax the people. I will struggle with them. And in thinking by 2021, when we rake in more oil, it will take care of the rest.
Let's look at your sector, which is the health sector. Yeah. Now, the health insurance, which is one of the major policy planks of government in terms of the healthcare sector, still the money that is expected to go in there will not go there because of capping, of course. So that's something which is going to affect the health sector. Again, in terms of the infrastructure, some of the projects that are being mentioned, the Atibia, the Eastern Region Group of Hospitals, were just passed last week in Parliament, yet the Finance Minister was still mentioning them. Are there no new projects? Why is the government still repeating hospital projects in the budget when they've already been approved by Parliament and they're supposed to be rolled out? Is this not a symptom of deficient thinking in terms of the health sector?
Yes, that point, he made it clear. Parliament has worked on it, the approvals have been given. And then he did also mention some other new hospital projects.
So why repeat it?
And Eurojet, as I'm talking to you, is going to do 10 new hospitals soon. They are already engaging us on the committee level. So he's repeating because obviously trying to tell Ghanaians that, yes, it was on his plate, something is being done about it. Now, in terms of health insurance, what we seek to do now is that capping itself is what they are doing. They are doing capping for this IPEP. A lot of the capping process is going to this infrastructure for poverty eradication program. But this time around, a deal we have broken is that the capped amount of the NHIA, if they cap to get 4, they are going to give 2 back. So the capping position on NHIA, by virtue of the talks we have had before the budget, is relatively going to improve now, I can tell you.
So you had there the reactions from your representatives as your members of Parliament on the budget that was presented by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. What is left is for the House to sit down and debate this budget and approve or disapprove of it. We'll be back after this break. So you're welcome back from that break. This is Duke's View. Today I would not go into the merits of the budget. That's like the biggest matter in Parliament this week, but I would put that on hold for now until MPs have had a bite of it and they've done the dissection through the debates that will be happening in the coming weeks. But I've got a few peripheral auxiliary issues regarding the budget to talk about. The conduct of members of Parliament during the presentation of the budget was quite commendable this time round. We didn't have the usual catcalls and disruptive behavior, uncontrolled, unbridled heckling. All of that did not happen, this year during the presentation of the budget until the end, the very end, where we had the bye-bye budget and then all those ones which came in there. Of course, that is to be expected. And I must say, kudos to MPs for at least keeping it decorous and keeping the standards of Parliament. Of course, we would do much better if the shenanigans at the end, the shouting and all of that had been done away with. But apart from that, I think the decorum is good. Finally, I think we need a proper debate on this budget. Well-researched positions worthy of members of Parliament who are paid millions of tax dollars, or millions of tax cedis, if I should put it that way, and who are voted by thousands of people to come and represent them here. No substandard debate, no propaganda reading debate. We expect, the people of Ghana expect, well-researched, properly articulated debate policy positions on the 2020 budget. That's what the people of Ghana expect. So that's how we wrap up today's edition of Duke's View, and by extension, the Chamber, which brings you all you need to know about the issues in and around Parliament. This week has all been about the budget and the 2020 budget. My name is Mensah Opoku. Catch you same time next week on the same channel, and keep watching Citi TV. Enjoy the rest of our programming.